Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Bilbo?
Present.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
Ms. House? Here. Mr. Kelleher?
Here.
Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Edmond? Mr. Schnee?
Present.
Mr. Urban? Mr. Vogt?
Here.
Ms. Wakes? Present. Mr. McGinley?
Present.
Vice President?
9 present. 2 absent at this point. Moving down to the agenda items, recognitions and ceremonial proclamations. We have a bevy of proclamations this evening. The Lyme Disease Awareness Month, which is May 2019. We have the proclamation prepared and will be presented to them before the May 19 meeting. Autism Awareness Month, this Friday evening, 6 o'clock, there will be a ceremony here in the Rotunda where the proclamation will be presented. Conservation District Week, May 5 through the 11th, 2019. This will be given to Councilman Bowe, who is our member on that committee. We will have that presented at their next conservation meeting. The Lions Club International, multiple District 4 through, will be the 96th Annual State Convention. And so we will be presenting that to them in that regard. Then we have 3 proclamations from the Northeast Pennsylvania Manufacturers Employers Association Award, Cargill Beef, Intermetro Industries, and Transcontinental Hazleton. These are 3 corporations, companies in Luzerne County who will be getting those awards at their awards banquet a little bit later. And then we get down to the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. And we have several people here from our 911 center. And this is a very fine award for the 911 team. Take a moment to read that. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. And whereas the safety of our responders is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Luzerne County Communications Center. Whereas the public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. Whereas the public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our first responders by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. Whereas each telecommunicator has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism in the performance of their job. Now we therefore, the Luzerne County Council, do hereby proclaim the week of April 14, the National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Luzerne County in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep the county and citizens safe. So obviously we'll be presenting that a little bit later to the people who are here from our 911 center. Also, in regards to a gentleman who is employed at our 911 center, Mr. Michael Ackenbrand. He's been informed that he's the 2018 Information Technologist of the Year. The proclamation reads, whereas Luzerne County Council and the citizens of Luzerne County believe that the greatest gift an individual can bestow on his or her community is a willingness to serve and place one's own needs second to the needs of others. Whereas 911 CAD/GIS supervisor Michael Ankenbrand has proven himself to be an invaluable leader at the Luzerne County 911 Center, where his actions have had a positive impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Luzerne County. And whereas Supervisor Ackenbrand's achievements have gone above and beyond his normal duties and employment, bringing outstanding innovation to his responsibilities. Whereas the Pennsylvania chapter of the Association of Public Safety Communication Officials International has recently named Mr. Michael Ankenbrand as the 2018 Information Technologist of the Year for his achievements at the Luzerne County 911 Center. Now, therefore, we, the Luzerne County Council, during the National County Government Month of April 9, 2019, do hereby honor and applaud 911 CAD/GIS Supervisor Michael Ankenbrand for his loyal and valued employee in Luzerne County government operations. Thank him for his continued public service to the county residents and congratulate him on being named the 2018 Information Technologist of the Year. And if Michael would come to the board, we'd be happy to present the award to him. Congratulations on the recognition. That's yours, and this is for the team. If you'd like to go to the podium and make some remarks.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I greatly appreciate it, everyone being here, and the award here from council members. Thank you. My colleagues and my friends here could say I'm not exactly one for all of this limelight stuff. I'm more of a guy who likes to just do my thing, fly under the radar, and just make sure things get done. But I'm very humbled. I'm very appreciative of all of this. And as far as the team award as for the 911 center, they definitely did a terrific job. They do it every day, but that incident in particular that we got this award for was one that really stands out and will stand out for time to come, and something to learn from. We're very proud of our staff. We're very proud of everyone that works at 911, and like I said, as for myself and the rest of the 911 Center, we are very appreciative of everything council has done for us, continues to do for us. County Manager, Mr. Pedri, again, thank you guys. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Want to introduce your members that are here?
Sure, absolutely. Megan Hannon, our PSAT manager.
Oh, she will.
Andy Zahorsky, our data manager and technical support manager. Jacob Schmidt, one of our telecommunicators who was working the night of the tornado that we got the team award for, and Damian Matizak as well, another telecommunicator that's here. So, thank you again, everyone. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. It's very nice. And again, we very, very, very much appreciate it. Thank you.
I think the young lady, do you want to come to the podium?
Megan?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. And we have one other proclamation for the 911 team, whereas Luzerne County Council and citizens of Luzerne County believe that the greatest gift an individual can bestow on his or her community is a willingness to serve and place one's own needs second to the needs of others. Whereas the 911 communicator employees have proven themselves to be invaluable leaders at the Luzerne County 911 Center, where their actions have had a positive impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Luzerne County during the EF2 tornado on Wednesday, June 13, 2019, which is the incident that Michael cited. Whereas each telecommunicator has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job duties. Whereas the Pennsylvania Chapter of Association of Public Safety Communication Officials International has recently named the Luzerne County 911 as the 2018 Team of the Year for their actions at the 911 Center. Therefore, we, the Luzerne County Council, do hereby honor and applaud the 911 team as loyal and valuable employees in Luzerne County government operations. Thank them for their continued public service to the county residents and congratulate them on being named the 2018 Team of the Year. Again, congratulations.
Mr. Chair, can I say one thing?
Manager Pedri?
I just want to say on behalf of county management, as the county manager of Luzerne County, I'm lucky to work with these individuals every single day. But most importantly, as a resident of Luzerne County and as a father of young children, I am blessed to have such dedicated individuals watching over us, taking care of us. When that moment happens and you need to pick up a phone and you need help right away, it means a lot to me to have a Luzerne County employee on that other side, somebody who cares. And if you haven't met the people who worked at 911, a lot of them are just like Mike. They don't like the spotlight. They do their job. They keep their head down, and we're so lucky to have them. And I'll tell you what, the Pennsylvania chapter has provided us with these awards. We can win an award every single day for what they see. And what they do on an every single day basis. So I'll tell you what, we're lucky to have them. I want to thank you for your service, and you make us proud every day. Thank you very much.
We also have several retirements during the month. Carol Bryden, who was a custodial worker in our Buildings and Grounds Department. Herbert Chakowski, who was in security. Mary D. Liberto, case manager in the Area Agency on Aging. Michael John, correction officer from the Luzerne County Correctional Facility. William Listman, who was our coroner, who had served in that capacity for many years. Mary Ann Malinowski, who was a clerk typist 2, also with the Area Agency on Aging. And Suzanne Strittmatter, who would be a caseworker in the Mental Health Developmental Services. So we congratulate them on their retirement and wish them best as they move forward into other endeavors. Moving on to page 2. Any additions or deletions from the voting session agenda? Yes.
Mr. McGinley, I'd like to delete item number 3 regarding the contract with Maverick Strategies from the voting session.
Ms. Hauk moves that we remove number 3. Do we have a second to that? Second. Mr. Urban? On the question?
Why, please?
I sent out an email to council quoting sections of the charter and the administrative code. This whole idea of a lobbyist notwithstanding, the way this contract was came about is not in compliance with the charter. The charter requires that RFPs be put out for contracts of this size. And the manager said at the work session that an RFP was not put out in this matter, and that's a violation of the charter.
My response to that, our office had reviewed that, and in looking at section 609, it had indicated that specific policies and procedures should be set forth for advertising requirements and the like for both RFPs for professional and unique services as well as competitive bidding. But when you go to the administrative code, it just says refer back to the charter. So my concern is I believe there's a gap, and the administrative code should be revised to set forth the specific procedures. I have a hard time saying there's a charter violation for not following the process when there's not a complete process in place. For example, with advertising requirements, how many newspapers of general circulation, how long does the response period have to be? 1 week, 1 month? So I truly believe the administrative code is deficient in setting forth the procedures for the RFPs. And when I went back looking over the professional and unique services contracts that have been adopted or passed throughout the years, I mean, they're all over the place. Some were RFP'd, some weren't, and we need some consistency and more definition in the administrative code.
Yes.
I would agree that the details of it are not spelled out, but the question of whether an RFP should be issued doesn't depend on what the details are that are or are not spelled out in the administrative code. The charter clearly says that there should be procedures and that an RFP should be issued for contracts of this size. Whether it should be advertised in 3 papers or 5 papers, whether it should be advertised for 5 days or 10 days or however many days, are details that would come after the fact that an RFP should be issued.
Yeah,
that's the essential point, and no RFP was issued.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have a greater concern if, only one firm was contacted, but it's my understanding that 3 or 4 firms were contacted regarding it. So again, there was requests for informations or proposals from like 4 forms or 4 entities, and the issue is then the advertising issue, which isn't spelled out in the administrative code.
Anyone else with questions?
Yes. Well, so what are you saying? That this is all right, or do you agree with Ms. Hauk that we shouldn't do this?
Well, to say to take it off the table and go issue an RFP now, that's not gonna solve the problem, because then what's the process? If we're saying, hey, there's a violation because he didn't follow the process, well, the process isn't clearly defined in the administrative code like it's supposed to be per the charter.
We have issued RFPs though, in this county, right? We have issued RFPs?
Yes.
Okay,
But
so.
to say for professional and unique services, is this a red flag where, hey, we've issued an RFP every single time and this is the only time that we're not doing it? Like, that would raise a red flag. But in going back, looking at various contracts for professional or unique services, it hasn't been consistently
But they
done.
have to meet the threshold, and the threshold is that this is one of those over the $25,000.
Yeah, and there have been ones that have been, other ones that have been over $25,000 that weren't RFP.
Well, I requested that it be deferred from the voting session to the work session if it's gonna be maintained on tonight's subjects at all. So I would like to ask that it be moved to the work session.
So first, you asked for
Well, I
deletion,
would like
right?
it deleted from the voting session.
Okay, let's vote on that first,
What you do
okay?
with it after that is, you know.
Yeah, but we can add it to the work session if we wish, right? So we have a motion from Ms. Houck, second from Mr. Urban to delete item number 3, which would be in regards to the contract with Maverick Strategies. Everybody understand? If you vote yes, that means you delete number 3. If you vote no, it means that number 3 stays on the agenda. Okay? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bilbao?
No.
Mr. Haas?
Yes, to delete from the voting agenda.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
No.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Mr. Schnee?
No.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
No.
Ms. Wakus?
No.
Mr. McGinley?
No. The motion fails. Do we have a motion, any other motions regarding additions or deletions?
Mr. Chair, motion to move said item to the working agenda, following the voting agenda.
Well, okay, I guess that's a separate motion. Motion to move number 3 from the voting session to the work session. Is that correct, Mr. Haas?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a second for Mr. Haas?
Second.
Ms. Houck? On the question?
On the question, do we get any other information from other counties, how successful they've been with hiring a lot
If we
of?
get to that point, we can bring that up, Mr. Snee, and the gentlemen are here this evening. So certainly we can ask questions at that point in time. But the motion right now is to take number 3, which is on the voting session, move it to the work session. Okay? And we have a motion and a second. Any other questions?
My reasoning for that, Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
may, again, you know, it's a contentious issue. This is something the county has done before. The question if the charter truly allows it, and the RFP process, there's a lot of question marks here. And I think at the same time was just introduced last week by the management. In order for us to do our due diligence, I believe the gentleman from Maverick are here tonight. We can ask questions, we can get a better understanding of the whole process, what the success stories have been, and if we feel that it's important to move on it, we can do that certainly next week. I don't think we're at a critical
Well,
time to
Just so
implement this
we
contract.
discussed this 2 weeks ago, okay?
We
So
did,
that-
I
right.
acknowledge that.
And our next session would be 3 weeks from today.
And again, I think,
Just because
I
of
was
the
under the
calendar.
impression it was gonna be on the work session, not necessarily the voting session, but.
It was
wait
on
till
the work
tonight's
session last time, so that's why
Yeah.
it's on the voting session this time.
Very good.
Okay, everybody understand? If you vote yes, it means that number 3 will be removed from the voting session and moved to the work session. And vote no, it stays on the voting session, correct? Mr. Haas?
Yes,
Roll call?
Mr. Haas?
yes, to move to the work session.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
No.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
No.
Ms. Wakus? No. Mr. Bilbao?
No.
Mr. McGinley?
No.
4 yes and 5 no.
4 yes and 5 no. Motion carried. Okay, motion. We only have
Because you
5.
don't have,
We don't have 6.
you don't have majority.
No. don't have majority, we have majority of people present.
No, but it has to be a majority.
No, we have
No,
5. It's 4 yes, 5 no. Question is,
No,
there
there
were
were
six
Oh,
6
wait.
no's.
6 no's,
You
6
only
no's and 4
have to see
yes.
one person.
So 6-4.
Six, that's
So
correct.
you do have a majority.
One
Six.
person came in.
I'm sorry. I said 4, 5.
So you do have a majority.
That's correct in this county.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed one.
That's correct.
6 no.
So there's
Sorry.
a majority.
Miscalculation. Anything else? Do we have a motion to, any other deletions or additions? We have a motion to adopt the agenda.
So move.
Mr. Kelleher, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Snee? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
No.
3. Mr. Haas, Ms. Hauk, and Mr. Urban?
No, because I believe the item on the agenda is a violation of Luzerne County Home Rule Charter. Whether or not the administrative code has been amended or not, I think the charter is clear on the dollar amount and the procedure for professional services over that set dollar amount. Like that, word for word in the record.
Okay. So we have 3 no votes and 7 yes. Okay. So the agenda is adopted. We're moving to public comment. Before we move the public comment, Councilman Mr. Snee has asked to have time here to make a statement.
Yes. First of all, I want to apologize to anyone I hurt last week. I'm truly sorry. During my 60 years, I've coached Little League baseball, midget football, PAL basketball, high school football. I represent union people, 635 people, all of diversity. And if I hurt anyone, I'm just truly sorry. From the bottom of my heart, that's the furthest thing I'd ever want to do is hurt someone. I met with attorney Laura, and I met her Thursday before Easter. We had a good conversation. She wants to work with me to amend this situation and work to use it as a teachable moment to combat racism and bigotry so that Luzerne County can move forward. And again, I'm truly sorry if I hurt anyone.
Thank you. We'll move to public comment. Mr. Jaber?
Good evening, esteemed members of this council. It's been a while since I've stood in this position, and the thing that brought me out was this bit about hiring someone to seek funding for the council. They should go for it under any circumstances. Just heard a little scuttlebutt here about the RFP. I think if they did some more research on it, on the RFP, they would find that under certain circumstances, they don't have to put out an RFP. They can just go out and hire a service that they want that will do the job for them. Because when I had my business, I got a lot of government contracts that way. There were no RFPs. They just send me a letter, say, here, go do the job and bill us. And that's all I did. So, and I think the county is, the council is a little short-sighted in not wanting to let this county move forward into the 21st century and not hiring an agency to go out and seek funding for various projects. The state has them out there, the federal government has them out there. They don't send you letters and say, we have this or that, what do you want? You have to go look for it today. And I think that's the right move, and the county should do it without any hesitation. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Shiner?
I can appreciate Mr. Javer's comments when it comes to a private business. But even in a private business, depending on the size, they have rules and regulations, and what we have in this county is called the charter and the codes. I can also appreciate the solicitor's office saying that there's been inconsistencies in the RFPs and when they were used and when they weren't. But part of that inconsistency is from the solicitor's office, because we bend our charter, we bend the codes to suit whatever we want it to suit. That's why there's inconsistencies. And I find it very, very disturbing that members of council still have to ask a solicitor, what's a charter violation? Read it. Read the charter. Try and understand it. If you don't understand it, ask someone to explain it. It's not that difficult. This is a violation of the charter. First off, it should have come to council to ask if you even wanted the position before going out and taking offers from anyone. It was brought up 2 weeks ago. We have a grant writer. She is paid $68,730 a year to do that job. We have 10 elected people from Luzerne County in Harrisburg. Their base pay, $886,100. That's just the base pay. Then there's $183 per day per diem, plus all the benefits and pension. So you're talking over $1 million, well over $1 million, for the people we put in Harrisburg to do this job. I told you before my opinion of lobbying. Lobbying to me is nothing more than legalized bribery. You, this council, passed a resolution, number 42 of 2017. Whereas contributions to candidates and political spending on their behalf from lobbyists present a special risk of corruption. Why would you want to hire a lobbyist for the county? This is completely contrary to your own resolution. We have elected officials. That's their job. So we're going to add another $60,000 on it? And while you're at it, and I normally don't like to say things like this, but it's out on the street, and I'm going to say it. The gentleman from Maverick Strategies that's been engaged for this. People are asking why even consider a lobbying firm for Luzerne County that has Republican leanings when the majority of Luzerne County has Democrat leanings. So then when you do the research and you find out a little bit about this gentleman, you find out that he has been affiliated for over 18 years with a certain senator. So the street says, this is payback, this is a political favor. And you know what? I'm inclined to agree. Start acting on behalf of the people that elected you to be here. We don't need a lobbyist. Use the legislative committee. Reach out to these people. Get them to do the job we put them there. That's what needs to be done, not spending more money. And if we have $60,000 laying around that we have nothing better to do with than to hire a lobbyist, then I guess that means come October, when the budget's presented, there'll be no tax increase. Because if we have frivolous money and money to walk around and spend, then we certainly don't need to ask the taxpayers of this county to pony up more next year. Thank you.
Mr. Troy?
I agree wholeheartedly with what was just said by Mr. Shiner, and I want to compliment and commend Mrs. Hauk, Mr. Haas, Mr. Urban, as usual, for trying to get this eliminated from the agenda, this point about the hiring a lobbyist, Maverick Strategies. I just wanted to also ask, if I may, which nobody previously has mentioned, the ordinance to amend the fiscal year budget for the hiring of the Drug Task Force Officer and Transportation Planner. I understand that the state is going to pay the salary for these people, I assume, but is the county going to be responsible for pensions and benefits or anything. I assume that there must be something the county's going to pick up, or there wouldn't have to be an amending of the budget. Is that a correct assumption or not? And if anybody would care to respond.
That part is an incorrect assumption.
What's that?
That part of what you just said is an incorrect assumption.
So the county will have to pick up?
Mr. Troy, you have 3 minutes, so, and then we'll try to answer your questions, but whatever you want to.
I would like to, since all else seems to have failed, to get the majority of council to stop consideration of the contract with Maverick Strategies. I would like to ask Mr. Pedri if he would care to answer common folk like me, just an ordinary taxpayer. Do other counties, and there's 67 counties in Pennsylvania, do any other counties use a lobbyist? And if they do, what is their fiscal standing compared to this county's? Is obviously the question obviously that follows that is the hiring of such a lobbyist necessary? And I think Mr. Shiner answered that question pretty well. Doesn't seem to me that it is. Maybe Mr. Pedri can enumerate for the people in attendance and for council, especially the 8-member majority or 7-member majority, what the benefits of a lobbyist are. In other words, what will the benefits outweigh the cost, which is considerable, $5,000 a month. That's quite a bit of money, Mr. Pedri. I guess when you were a kid, your parents taught you that money doesn't grow on trees. My parents taught me that, to be frugal. That's an important word, frugality. That seems to have been swept under the rug with the dealings of this county. There are 3 people on the council that seem to be conscious of that, and that's it. The rest of you don't seem to be considerate at all. Maybe you could prove me otherwise. If this is not a waste of money, can you take the time, can you condescend, Mr. Pedri, in revealing to us how a $5,000 investment per month will prove to be beneficial down the road to the county? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Troy, I don't think you stayed for the work session last time, and you were not here earlier for the public hearing.
Can you speak into the mic? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't think you stayed for the public work session last time, and I don't think you're here for the public hearing. But in regards to the monies that were involved for the Drug Task Force officer, the Attorney General's office will provide funding. The county will be responsible for the pension, which is roughly 5%, so something over $2,000. We don't believe at this point, and Mr. Pedri pointed out at that time that the health care would not be part of that, and we will be making an amendment when we get to the voting part of that to remove that. So that, I think, answers your question regarding funding.
You're uncertain about health benefits and other things. We're not uncertain.
I just said they would not be having the health care benefits. Okay? And when we get to the voting session with Maverick Strategies, I'm sure Mr. Pedri will have some comments that will answer the questions that you posed. Anyone else? Those are the ones that have indicated they would like to speak to council. Mr. McCabe, you said non-agenda.
Okay.
Is that right? Or do you want to talk about agenda items? Is that right? Anyone else? Okay, moving on to the items. In regards to the minutes of the April 9th meeting, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
Ms. Wakes, second.
Second.
Mr. Vo? On the question? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition?
No.
Mr. Urban, any abstentions? None heard, motion carries. Moving down to agenda item number 1, motion to adopt the ordinance amending the 2019 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County, and this is in regards to the Drug Task Force officer.
Motion.
Mr.
Second,
Bilbo?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Haas? On the question? Anyone who would like to have a question in this regard? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Excuse me. We should, if we wish, we should delete the reference to healthcare in the resolution.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Haas, healthcare
Second.
will be deleted, and that would be Mr. Haas, seconded by Mr. Urban. Roll call on that,
Oh,
please.
Mr. Chair, you also made a comment that benefits, retirement benefits are 5%. I think they're somewhere around 11%. I don't know where you're coming up with the 5. I mean, I think there's a greater portion of the
It
base
varies
salary.
according to the,
Huh?
but
I think, but it's been over 10% for the last couple of years, and I don't think it's gone down because I believe.
well, then we're talking about $4,000 to $4,500, somewhere in that
Somewhere,
neighborhood.
but I mean, I think.
Is that correct?
Yeah, somewhere. I think Mr. Keller knows what that number is on the pension.
Are you including the healthcare?
No.
No.
Pension.
The pension benefit.
Oh,
Required
they can max out at 5.
Yeah, I mean, he can max out at 5. I'm talking about what the required.
County's
contribution of the
requirement.
county is to fund the retirement fund. It's about 12% now. It's been like that for the last couple of years.
I believe you're referring to, there's a 5% contribution from an employee's.
Yeah.
Right.
5% of contributions make into it. The question is, what the county's response.
Contribution.
Contribution would be, where the counties are guaranteed, every employee is guaranteed a 4% increase. It varies between the 5 and the 11%. I would agree with Mr. Urban on that. So you're talking on this particular project, you would do between $2,500 to, let's say on the high end, $5,000 a year.
I think $5,000 is probably a good number.
That would be the range of which, for this particular position.
That 5% is, I think you're throwing out a different number than what the real number is, what the taxpayers have to pay to provide that ARC payment. That ARC payment is a percentage of each person's salary, and that ARC payment is somewhere around 11 or 12% of everybody's salary nowadays. When you figure out a salary, you've got to include the ARC payment, what you're going to make for that person throughout the year.
Well, the amendment is on regards to healthcare.
Do you want me to clarify that, Mr. Chair, actually? Because if you look at the fifth whereas.
Yeah.
If you would
Go ahead.
prefer I do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my amendment will be the following. So it's going to remain the same. Whereas County Council of Luzerne desires to amend the budget at the appropriate line items in order to account for the receipt of funds from the Office of the Attorney General to cover salary, health care, and all expenses except for pension costs.
But we're going to delete the healthcare.
You're going to have to add to the pension costs anyway, because if you're assuming the position, you have to change the pension line as well.
Actually,
It will change.
Actually, Ms.
You're just
Salavantis,
not going to get revenue in to cover that.
correct. You're not going to get revenue to cover that. Ms. Salavantis does have extra funding in the pension line item because she's had numerous
Okay.
positions opening.
And I think she mentioned that the night she was here.
So she won't need an amendment to her pension line item. She has the money in the 2019 budget to cover
But,
the
Mr.
pension.
Urban is correct. That position will require a pension contribution.
Right, absolutely.
But your
I just wanna
amendment
make
was
sure
just
that-
for the healthcare.
Well, I want to make sure that we're clear where the money's coming from.
Right.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, then it's going to cover the salary and the health care.
It's not going to cover healthcare. If we
So-
take healthcare out of there, it's not going to cover healthcare.
No, but
Okay.
your amendment, it says amending the budget to account for the expenditure of funds. You still have to account for that expenditure of funds. The revenue isn't going to cover it, but you have to account, or the revenue will cover it.
The revenue
right?
will cover it.
Right. You still have to account for that expenditure, and that was, as long as we're making amendments, I mean, it makes sense to make all the amendments at once. So at the bottom where it says deduct payroll expenses, it should be add payroll expenses, and it should be add healthcare expense, because you are going to add those expenses.
So when I withdraw my motion, because I think Linda made a much better one, and then we can just look at the bottom there, that
You
section
want
two.
to withdraw your motion, Mr. Urban? You withdraw your second?
Yeah.
Okay. That motion's off the floor.
So I think your fifth whereas stays the same, but what you need to change is add payroll expenses, not deduct payroll expenses. Change deduct to add in both of those lines at the bottom.
That-
And then we need the line items.
And Mr. Sweats provided me the line items prior to the meeting tonight. For revenue, it's 100.12.4194.4 100.460.28. The second is 100.12.4194.520.XX. And then I would actually now need a healthcare. You didn't provide me the healthcare one.
Sure. So that the healthcare line item is 100.10.1000.530.30.
Say that again, please.
Sure. 100.10.1000.530.30. And the reason that's a different fund is that's a global thing that we charge across the whole general fund, not specifically to that line item.
Right.
And the 520.XX encompasses all the 520s because it has unemployment comp, payroll comp, so instead of listing them all separately, we just put 520.XX. It's all the sub-accounts underneath 520. Okay?
So we're gonna add that,
Correct.
correct?
Do we
Everybody-
need to,
As
do we
well.
need to add that the county will be responsible for pension-related expenses? So that that's clear in the resolution?
Yes.
So there would be a sixth whereas? Whereas Luzerne County?
I think Attorney
Okay.
Quick is
Okay.
working on that right now.
Or adding it all in where it says the expenditure of funds for salary, healthcare, and pension-related expenses.
Yeah, but we're not amending those line items, right? You said that she already has money in that line. You don't need to amend the line items. What I'm saying is you need a separate statement saying that Luzerne County understands that pension expenses will not be covered by the receipt of funds.
That's correct.
That's why I would put it as a separate section, a separate whereas.
Okay, let's make sure we have all the information that we would like to have as part of the amendment. We have another whereas, the pension expenses shall be covered by receipt of funds,
Or shall, the county, whereas the county understands that pensions
shall not be covered.
expenses shall not be covered by receipt of
Funds from the Attorney General's.
office.
Okay. And we're gonna add the line items at the bottom.
Yes,
And change the deducts to adds.
yes,
Add,
Right.
correct?
yeah, that's what I.
Ms. Houck, is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Do we have a second from Ms. Houck? Mr. Haas?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Everybody understand? Any questions in that regard to the amendment? Roll call, please.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay, and now we will be voting on the ordinance as amended. Mr. Bilbo, will you make that motion?
Motion.
Mr. Haas, second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes,
Unanimous.
thank you. Moving down to number 2, we have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the 2019 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County for the transportation planner. We have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Perry. We have a second.
Second.
Ms. Houck? Anything amendment-wise here?
We would just need then an amendment to, add the line item numbers, change the line item where it says deduct, change those words to add. And the compensation, the revenue that we would be booking would be up to 53,000, understanding it could be less depending on the,
So we need an amendment to go down to those line items. We're adding up to 53,000, which would be the salary range, Mr. Haas, that we talked about, correct?
That's right.
And the line item would be 100.50.4171.460.28. And then we would change those words to deduct to add. And the line items again would be for the payroll expenses, 100.50.4171.520.XX, because there's multiple expenses there. And then we will add the healthcare expenses, which would be, as Mr. Swats indicated, a global number, 100.10.1000.530.30. So we need an amendment.
I have a question, though. What
Go
about
ahead.
the pension expenses for this position?
Would be the same percentage as what we would do. for-
Okay, so do we need to amend the pension item for this?
Would you like to add?
Because you said that the district attorney had.
Yeah, we don't need to
additional
add, we don't need to
We
adjust.
don't need to amend it for this one
Nope.
now either.
We're good.
Good, okay. And is the PennDOT money covering it or not? Do we need to add the same whereas?
No, the PennDOT covers everything. PennDOT covers the salary, PennDOT covers the healthcare, PennDOT covers the 5 to 11% pension.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay, thank you. I'll make that amendment then.
Okay, Ms. Hauk makes that amendment. Do we have a second from Ms. Hauk? Mr. Kelleher, roll call on the amendment.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakus?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes,
Unanimous.
thank you. Going down to number 3, motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the county manager to execute a contract with Maverick Strategies. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. That was only an amendment. Now we need a motion to adopt the ordinance as amended. Mr. Perry made the motion.
Move to table this, Mr. Chair?
Table which?
This line item,
Which?
this ordinance,
Which one?
the one about the transportation planner.
Table?
I mean, the,
We're back, excuse me, Mr. Haas, I've jumped ahead of myself. We have to complete the work on the transportation planner first. Then we're going to get to number 3.
Fair
and
enough.
Okay? Mr. Perry, you make the motion with the amendments?
Yes.
Ms. Hauk, you make the motion with the
Yes.
amendments? Okay, see, second. So Mr. Perry, Ms. Hauk seconds that. You need a roll call on that?
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakus?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
yes.
Ms. Houk?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes,
Unanimous.
thank you. Now we're down to number 3. I jumped ahead of myself, that was my fault. Motion to adopt a resolution authorizing county manager to execute a contract with Maverick Strategies. Do we have a motion?
Motion to table this one, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Well, Mr. Haas, and Ms. Hauk, make a motion to table number 3 on the question.
No question.
There's no
Anyone?
discussion.
No discussion.
No discussion? Roll call, please, to table number 3, agenda item number 3, which is the motion to adopt a resolution authorizing county manager to execute a contract with Maverick Strategies. Roll call, please. If you vote yes, we will table it. If you vote no, it remains on the agenda.
Excuse me, before we vote.
Yes.
Tabling, what does tabling mean? Take it completely off?
It means we do not vote on it tonight.
And the motion earlier was to the work session.
Correct.
One motion, there was 2 motions we voted on earlier. One was to remove it from the agenda. The second motion was to take it from the voting session and move it to the work session.
Right. My question probably is, after.
I don't think there's any discussion on tabling, no.
Okay,
Okay?
yeah.
That's the procedure, okay?
All right.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
No.
Ms. Wakus?
No.
Mr. Bilbo?
No.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Houk?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
No.
Mr. Perry?
Nope.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
No.
6 to 4. 4 yes, 6 no.
6 no? So that motion Fails. Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Kelleher, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Vogt. On the question.
On the question, can we have a discussion now with
Yes.
Maverick Strategies, please?
Absolutely. If you come to the podium, would you please introduce yourselves, please?
Sure. I'm Ray Zaborni. I'm one of the founders of Maverick Strategies. With me is Christian Callahan, who's a partner, and Kyle Fitzsimmons, who's one of our senior associates. I'll just start off quick, introduce ourselves, and tell you a little bit about us, and then take any questions you might have. So we're you might have heard, a lobbying firm located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. We're a bipartisan firm, employ both Republicans and Democrats, have a long track record of working with the General Assembly to help clients navigate state government and successfully implement their plans. And in this instance, we've talked a lot about 911 funding, other things that we can do to help the county. I heard a lot of discussion tonight about, what do other counties do. 11 counties directly have lobbyists in the state of Pennsylvania. They're as big as Philadelphia and as small as Tioga. There are a handful or a couple handfuls of other counties who have lobbyists through their development, their IDAs, their economic development arms, all different kinds of entities outside of formal county government. But I would say a good deal of counties are represented in Harrisburg. We like to talk, we've worked well with your delegation in the past. They're a very effective delegation, but as you can imagine, they all have different constituencies to represent. They have different things that they put on their agendas, and having a lobbyist in Harrisburg helps you make sure that your agenda continues to move forward with our help. We work with legislative leaders, we work with the administration, we work across the board to try to help you accomplish your goals while in Harrisburg. We have a pretty good track record of helping folks get things done. We represent major corporations, but we also represent local governments. We represent the city of Harrisburg, which we just helped them successfully navigate through state government, something that they had never been able to get done before, which is exit, which no municipality's ever been able to get done before, which is exit Act 47 with unprecedented taxing authorities and able to keep their budget afloat and keep them in good financial stead, which is something that, if you know anything about the city of Harrisburg, they have not been in some time. Our efforts will help them make sure that they can continue on and continue to pay their bills and actually continue to invest in things like transportation, infrastructure, public safety, and all the things that all governments struggle with and deal with. So I think it's probably best if I just stop talking and let you ask any questions you might have.
Questions for the gentleman?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Someone mentioned, it might have been you, that there are currently, I think was the number 11
Yep.
counties in Pennsylvania that are represented by lobbyists?
Yep.
Or lobbying firms. Do you represent any of the 11?
We do not. We don't represent any other counties. You would be our sole county that we'd represent.
Ray, who do you represent right now?
So we can get you a client list. We have about 35 clients, I believe. But we represent people all across the board, from Uber, Walmart, obviously the city of Harrisburg we talked a little bit in detail about. We represent UPMC, some healthcare providers like Capital Blue Cross. We represent the Pennsylvania Brewers Association. I don't drink, so that one isn't as fun as for the rest of the staff, but they seem to enjoy that one. And so we represent across the board different diverse interests that come in front of state government. And it's really allowed us to work with, someone had mentioned earlier about us being a Republican-leaning firm. I actually think we employ more Democrats than Republicans in our lobbying firm, but we certainly have ties on both sides of the aisle. We employ a former state representative who was there for 25 years from the Pittsburgh area, who's a Democrat and chair of several committees. Kyle Fitzsimmons, who is from northeastern Pennsylvania, obviously, and worked for your state senator up here. But we also have, Christian was chief of staff to the Speaker of the House. So we have a very different bipartisan mix of folks who are able to take on these issues. And because we work in such a diverse area, we've been able to work with almost every member of the General Assembly in one area or another for one of our clients or another.
Okay, I have another question.
question, sure.
Another question. So for us in Luzerne County, approximately $5,000 a month is a lot of money.
Sure.
So
I grew up in Shamokin, so $5,000 a month is a lot of money. There's no doubt about it.
Sure. So what I would like to know is, what are we going to get for the $5,000 a month?
Yeah, sure. So that's a question we often get. And what I can tell you is you're going to get 100% of our effort. You're going to get us focused and aligned with your goals and what you want to secure for the county. I think what often happens, and I think you've seen this in the past, is legislators have the best intentions and that they fight hard for some of your priorities, and they let off some of your other priorities because they have a limited amount of asks and a limited amount of things they can do. We like to think of ourselves as the folks who help refocus folks down there. We also help your legislative team be more effective. We also work with legislative leaders directly to talk about issues that are important to Luzerne County. So, with the state Senate and state House leadership, and also being inside the administration and being able to talk with them about the things that are important. So I'm not going to stand up here and tell you you're going to get X amount of dollars if you hire us, because obviously there are no guarantees in this. But I can tell you that we don't have a lot of, I don't know that we have any clients that would complain about our efforts or our success rate, and would be happy to I'm not sure if the county manager had talked with some of our clients, but certainly we have clients who will vouch for us that we are pretty good value for what we charge, and I think that will be the situation when we come here. Additionally, the one thing you can expect from us is we like to communicate with our clients fairly regularly. So we are happy to come to county council in front of you, let you know what we've been working on, let you know individually, let you know, I don't want to violate the Sunshine Act, but certainly we'll work closely with the county manager, we'll work closely with all council, and we'll let you know what we're working on, and you'll be able to see the effort that we're putting in, and I think you'll see the results come budget time and come, when our contract.
If I may,
back
Mr.
up.
Chair?
Any other questions for council for the gentleman at the podium?
Just as a follow-up.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor. I defer to the manager.
Oh, I apologize.
Let
That's all right,
Mr.
Mr.
Haas.
Manager.
No, go ahead.
Well, because it's unrelated. If it's a follow-up.
Just as a follow-up, Maverick Strategy does represent King's College, and obviously King's has been doing some really great things, and they were really successful in getting some of these monies moving towards King's just in the past year, and that's been a huge addition to Wilkes-Barre City and to King's as well. In addition. So Mr. Ray was talking about what's the goals of the county. Now, right now, and I'm sure everybody in this room has heard me say it for the last 3 years, we are staring at a precipice of the 911 funding. Okay, we are looking at between a $16 to $24 million system for our 911 system. I said to you in detail at the last meeting what we went through for that LSA grant, where it was $1 million that we asked for in that LSA grant. That, in my opinion, was a no-brainer. Absolute slam dunk, public safety for towers in Luzerne County. I called and I did everything we possibly could, and our state legislators were able to get us $333,000, which is a great number. But that whole number would have been much more easily supported with the use of a clear and consistent and concise message from a lobbying firm. I want to be very clear with everybody in this room. A lobbying firm doesn't take the place of a grant writer. The lobbying firm doesn't take the place of a state legislature. A lobbyist firm supports those systems. And as I said in our last session, we're in Act 2 of this government. Where are we going? This is a 1-year contract, 14-month contract, where we're going to be looking at this for an opportunity. And you know what? Now's the only time I think would be the best time to take a look at this, because we are looking at a major outlay at this point. And I apologize to interrupt, but I'll turn it over to Mr. Haas, or the chair.
Yeah. Mr. Haas.
Thank you, John. Guys, welcome to Wilkes-Barre.
Thank you.
And again, so I'm looking here at the page
I dated a girl from Wilkes for a long time, so I'm pretty familiar with the Perkins right there off 81, and so I'm pretty good up here.
Still open all night.
And being from Shamokin, I feel at home up here.
Less than $5,000.
I may actually owe Perkins some money. I may have left once without paying my tab, so we'll stop on the way back through and see if I do.
They have some toothpicks there too. Grab some on the way out. I'm seeing here, gentlemen, here on section 3, whereas the resolution says to enter into a couple things dealing with 911. I'm sorry, it's the second one actually. You're going to provide the following services: general consulting, relationship building, message creation, news monitoring, legislative bill monitoring, grant monitoring, and client communications. I don't see grant application or grant writing responsibilities here, and I don't see either grant management. So I know there's two sides of that coin.
Sure.
When you have grants, I know you're aware of that. Grant writing. So I'm under the impression here that you're going to basically bring our awareness that the grants exist.
So really, it's
kick it off to our grant writer, because we have one grant writer in Luzerne County.
Yeah. So I would tell you we'll make you aware of grants. Your grant writer will write the grant. but then we will chase the grant. And, you know, oftentimes, as you can imagine, when there's opportunities for money, 67 counties apply for those opportunities fairly often. So yes, it's very important to be aware, and I think that's an important first step. It's important to have a good grant. We can't sell something that isn't worthy of their consideration, but oftentimes you have 50 counties whose grants are worthy of consideration. We want to make sure that your grant is one of the counties that gets funded, and that's one of the ways that we try to help our clients.
Because, I mean, we have a grant writer, and she does a bang-up job. I know Mr. Pedgie would agree with me on that. And, you know, it was brought up that she makes, her salary is brought up, but she really should make probably twice that for all the work she does. She does an awful lot of work. But nonetheless, do you see, truly, I truly
I promise
mean
I
that.
won't get in her way.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can. She's a dynamo. But when you look at this, so, you know, as you foresee, you see the grants are out there. How do you come alongside her in preparing the grant? What are the nitty gritty parts of that part of the contract?
Yeah, I mean, I will, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong on anything, but I think what we would do is we would work with the manager's office and the grant writer. We would make them aware. She would prepare the grant. We would review it to make sure and see if there's anything that we notice that may be able to be helpful from our experience. But the writing itself, we would leave up to her. We would give our opinions. We would give our guidance, and then once the grant is in, that's kind of when you guys turn us loose to be able to go and try to shake the trees for whatever the grants are.
Okay. Because I mean, obviously you heard the dialogue before. I'm very cautious about this whole undertaking. I see manager's idea. Obviously, we want as much money as we can get. I totally get that, but I just have some red flags. And one of them that wasn't mentioned is that, okay, so we're going to find these extra grants out there, maybe 5, maybe several, maybe dozens, and then how does she write all that? Because right now, she's like at capacity now with all the other stuff that she's doing. How can your firm help her do that?
Yeah, so we'll be up front. We're not grant writers. It's not what we do. But we certainly will work with her to do anything we can to help the process. It sounds like that's an issue that I'm sure the county manager will address and make sure that you have the resources you need. You know, if I could take a step back from the grant writing for a second and address one of your kind of concerns earlier is, and I don't want to minimize this, is to your point earlier, this is a lot of money for a county. And certainly, it's a contract that you have to enter in without any guarantees. We can't give you guarantees because that's illegal, and I look awful in orange. So I am not going to come up here and guarantee you anything. But I do want you to know that when we've had clients that have entered into similar things like this, the city of Harrisburg gave us an undoable task, which we then turned around and accomplished for them. Because we were confident that we could do it. We were confident that we would deliver on what we said we could do, and we were confident, quite frankly, with a 1-year contract that we would get it renewed. So a couple weeks ago, we got it renewed because they got unprecedented taxing authority. I can tell you that our business model, and I've heard a lot of things about lobbyists today. That is not our business model, just so everyone's aware. Our business model isn't to come up to county council in Luzerne County, tell you what we think you want to hear so that we can get $5,000 a month from you, and then not deliver on anything for you. This is the most public setting we could be in to push our services, and therefore we are well aware that when we come up here and tell you we're going to do something for you, we have to be fairly confident, actually extremely confident, that we'll be able to deliver on that. So I can tell you that I understand all your hesitations, and I don't fault you at all for carefully considering this, but I can tell you, us standing up here, us coming up here and having this conversation, and it wasn't just one conversation we had several. We made sure we did our due diligence to see what you were interested in, what you wanted to achieve, and then we internally talked about to make sure we could achieve it. And that's exactly what we did. We went back to the office and said, can we help them? Because if we can't help you, coming up in this public setting, going through this process and then having to come back at the end of this year with nothing, I mean, that is not a good business model for us. So I just want to be clear that we are very, very confident that come next year you'll be satisfied with the work we did. If we weren't, we wouldn't be standing up here in front of you at a public meeting telling you that we can help you. One other example I'd like to give you is and I always hate to plug our competitors, but in Dauphin County they have a lobbyist, and Dauphin County is a county probably a little bit bigger than yours, but somewhat similar. They have done great things. They've gotten grants, they've gotten all kinds of stuff, but they've been able to have a seat at the table when laws are being written that would affect third-class counties and similar-sized counties. And one of the biggest things that they've done is they've taken their LST dollars and moved that to be controlled by the county. I don't know that can get accomplished for any other county, but the reason I bring that up for you is because having a seat at the table for laws that affect third-class counties. So we talk a lot tonight about you're looking for return on investment, which is a smart way to do it. That's what taxpayers, all of you, should be interested in. What are you going to get for this amount of money? But also, these laws that get passed in Harrisburg can negatively affect you, as you guys know, to look at voting machines, look at all the different sorts of things. These are all things that you want to have a seat at the table for. And it isn't that your legislators don't have a seat at the table, but again, they have so many priorities that having somebody super focused on what is best for Luzerne County when they write the voting machine law, what is best for Luzerne County when they pass the budget, when they pass the trailing documents for the budget, what is best for and empowers you guys to keep moving Luzerne County forward. Having someone whose focus is that and having that seat at that table is a very important thing. And that's one thing that I think we get lost in a lot of times in these sorts of things when it's all about dollars and cents, and it should be. But not only do we think we'll bring you back a positive return, because we're confident we will, that's why we're standing here, but we also think that you'll see advantages to having somebody alert you of what's happening in regards to counties, and also getting your story and what you need, not just in dollars and cents, but also in legislation in front of people, and that's an important thing to consider. I'll stop talking now. I don't know if I've convinced you yet, but
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chair.
have
Thanks.
two comments.
Yeah.
Early on in your presentation, you talked about goals
Mhm.
for the county.
Yep.
How would those goals be ascertained or derived?
I would work, or we would work, I should say, with all of you. Obviously, it's easy to work through the county manager's office, but we also want input from all of you in what you think is important going on in state government that affects you guys. So we would work on that together. My number one thing when I come in to talk to clients, whether it's a group like this or it's a CEO of a company, is that the number one breakdown in relationships between clients and service providers is communication, or misunderstanding about communication. So we want to know, we'll set up a way to communicate with you guys that works for you. Whether it's working through the manager exclusively, whether it's working through council president and the manager, you guys come up with a way that works best for you to communicate your goals and what you want done and where you want to be on certain pieces of legislation. Also create how we tell you what we think are opportunities for you. But we're pretty open, but we like to have that discussion, as soon as the contract's done, so that we're all on the same page communication-wise.
Well, I think it's very important that you have the council involved in this.
Of course.
Because obviously, council has to make decisions.
You guys are the bosses, yeah. No, I understand.
Monetary decisions are
Yeah.
made here. So, the second part is I follow the Penn Live online, so I followed your things with Harrisburg.
Yeah.
And I think there was quite a bit of discussion there at one point in time about renewal.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some issues, and how were those issues resolved?
Yeah, so I think what happened in Harrisburg is, so you have a very contentious relationship in Harrisburg between the mayor and the council at times. And I think the mayors try not to get in trouble. I think there are communication issues between those two bodies. And I think what council wanted in order to renew, it was not based as President Williams, who's the president of City Council, said over and over again, it is not a performance-based question to renew. It's more of a communication-based question. And they asked for us to come quarterly to City Council and update them on what was going on. I think that's more than reasonable. I think there was a communication issue on if we should just come and tell them and get on the agenda ourselves, or if they should invite us. But look, we'll do whatever you want. If you want us to come up once a quarter, we'll be happy to come up once a quarter and talk about the progress we're making.
So that's how it was resolved?
That's how it was resolved, yep.
So you had worked out the communication with the council so that...
No changes to the contract, no changes, no performance issues. It was all about how are you going to report back to council, and we were happy to do whatever worked for them, and would be happy to do whatever works for you guys.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
I have a question. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, I have a question.
Sure.
My question is, I'm assuming it's important to have your firm to have a cordial relationship with decision makers in Harrisburg. So I'm just curious. I know nothing about your group or any lobbying group. How do you develop that?
Yeah, so a lot of the relationships have come from our years of service one way or the other. So Christian comes from, and Kyle come from the legislative side. Christian was chief of staff to the speaker, which meant when he was leader, which meant he helped run the House Republican caucus. Kyle worked in the Senate Democratic caucus for 18 years. So he's had relationships like that. Paul Costa, who works for us, worked in the was a member from the House Democrats for 25 years. So he has some long-standing relationships there. His brother's also the majority leader. in the Senate, and then I've come up through politics. So I've worked on campaigns, I've advised political candidates, and that is how I have my relationships a lot with the Senate Republicans, House Republicans, not to mention people across the state. One of my first campaigns I ever worked on was Colonel Urban's first race for Congress. So 1996.
That's right.
I was a college Republican at Bloomsburg University. So that's where I got started.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
No, I was going to say that. When I said Ray, and I
Yeah.
heard your name, and I said, Shamokin. I said,
Shamokin.
that's where I met you at Bloom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. We knocked on doors in Shamokin together too.
Came down and spoke
over the
at
years.
Bloom at the college and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So,
Yep.
so don't mind it if I vote against this, because I don't believe in it.
Hey, listen. Hey, listen. Hey, I've grown up in politics, so you can vote no. I'll come up, shake your hand afterwards, and we'll get started working together. I mean, it's up to everybody. Obviously, it's up to everybody to decide what they think is best.
Disclosures out there. So.
We are here to at your service and to help you. No matter what the vote is tonight, we'll work for all 11 members of council and the county itself, and we'll look forward to getting everybody's input. Should we be successful?
Perry?
Well,
Yeah.
just a couple concerns. I came in tonight really on the fence on this whole
Sure.
situation. And you really won me over here. Because what hit home to me is that you would not be coming to us if you didn't think that you can do something for us.
Yeah.
I mean, it would look pretty bad if
You're
for your
100%.
firm.
You're
So
100%
we are
right.
such dire need for money that sometimes you got to think out of the box, and I commend our county manager for that.
Mhm.
So you got my vote tonight.
Well, I appreciate that.
Anyone else?
If I could, Mr.
To
Chair?
ask a question? Sure.
How did this relationship start? How did you find in Luzerne County? Did we find you? How did the manager find you?
I'll take this one.
Yeah, I don't know how it started. I know that we talked, and that's where it started for me. But the manager may know the process better.
So this is something that I've been talking to some state legislators about since my time became as county manager, to bring in a lobbyist firm, how we go about doing it. I started looking at lobbyist firms out there. I started looking at who represents who. I looked at Kings, obviously, who came across Maverick Strategies. I then decided to move forward with the process. I asked Maverick Strategies for a formal proposal. I asked another firm for a formal proposal. I talked to two other firms as well as I moved forward with the process. When I came across Maverick Strategies, they were the low bidder, as well as even if they weren't the low bidder, they would come across as my recommendation for the right firm for Luzerne County at this time. And that's how I first started getting in contact with this firm.
Okay. All right, thanks, Manager. So I'm looking, I see the resolution we have here, and it's very general. Do we have a copy of the RFP, or I'm even looking at the transportation plan?
We have a copy of the
I
contract.
didn't see that.
The contract.
I didn't see the contract.
Yeah, it's
Page
there.
24, 25.
Right.
It follows it, that's it.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I thought that was- Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Sneak.
At King's College, what successes have you had there,
Kyle, you wanna?
money-wise?
Sure. At King's, they were going after RCAP, or RACP, depending how you pronounce it up here. And they were, the 2 rounds or so, they were able to I think it was $3.5 million is what they got at King's.
What
For
was the
a couple different
That was a
projects.
few years ago, though, wasn't it, Mr. Simmons? And the RCAP, I don't think we have that anymore. Is it
RCAP.
still around?
Oh, yes,
funds are
yes.
still available?
Yep. Mhm.
So with the LSA funds, we see that in the paper a lot. Obviously, you worked out with,
Yes. Yeah, the Kings didn't get any LSA this past
maybe it
time
was
around, I believe.
Wilkes. I don't know, there's so many.
Might have been Wilkes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think each of the colleges or universities have gotten some
Yeah,
at some
over the
point.
years.
Harrisburg.
Yes.
Harrisburg.
Yeah. You want to hear about what happened in Harrisburg?
Yeah, the dollar value.
So, to the city of Harrisburg, it's probably what? 11.5 million, $12 million. Now you got to remember that was a change to a law. So we talked earlier about how we can amend some laws, how we can do things like that. Harrisburg had unique taxing authority under Act 47. While they were under state oversight, they were able to increase their LST and they were able to increase their earned income tax. Never before in the history of Pennsylvania has anyone been allowed to leave Act 47 without any additional taxing authorities. When you leave Act 47, that means you get back to whatever taxing authorities are in Pennsylvania law. We were able to change the law so that Harrisburg could leave Act 47. They're on their way to a credit rating. We have a few more steps to go because they're unrated currently, and they were able to see $12 million improvement to their bottom line when they got out of Act 47 versus the projections that the receiver had made. What would happen to them when they got out of Act 47? It's actually been a lifeline for the city of Harrisburg. It's likely had they exited Act 47 the old way, within 2 years they would be in one of two places, either back in Act 47, or the receiver said they would have to pass a 100% property tax increase, which, as you guys all know, as you struggle here to deal with property taxes, I mean, that's a death knell for any municipality to increase property taxes 100%.
Anyone else?
Chair, if I may?
Yes,
again?
sure.
Again, page 25 of the agenda packet, it's, let's see, it's actually section 3 of the retainer. Client will pay a retainer in the amount of $5,000 a month. Expenses will not exceed $500 per month without prior approval. What expenses do you see potentially accruing?
We typically would have expenses for things like mileage, accommodation, anything that would come up. I can't see that would be a large line item.
So that's covered by Luzerne County then? That would be on top of the $5,000 a month?
Yes, if we travel for work for you guys, yes, that would be covered under expenses.
So, I mean, okay, without prior, so we could actually look at $5,000 a month. We're potentially looking at $5,500 a month, correct, for the bottom line. So it's going to be a little higher cost. As I read this.
I wouldn't anticipate us spending $500 every month.
Okay, but potentially it could if we follow the letter of the contract. We could. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm just trying to really ascertain this whole thing. And if expenses do go more than that, we could potentially be on the hook for more than that?
No, absolutely not. If we needed more expenses, which I cannot, for the life of me, believe that would be the case, we would ask for prior approval for anything. That would proceed.
$500 would be the maximum, correct?
Yes, correct.
Just real quick on that, we have a similar client that's based statewide that we do a lot of traveling on, and our monthly expenses for statewide travel is no more than $275 a month.
Question?
Yes.
Who would give that prior approval?
That's a great question for someone that knows the county charter.
I'd be happy to give that to the county council. Though I think it'd probably be my authority, but I'm happy to have you guys do that.
Could I just ask?
Sure.
So, the government entity that you've represented so far is the city of Harrisburg?
Correct.
And what you did for them, now we've been talking about this as a grant, an ability for us to get grants and things like that. But what you actually did for Harrisburg was get laws changed to allow them to tax their citizens more.
No. What we did was get laws that allow them to tax their citizens at their current rate and not lose authority.
Which was more than they had been able to do before that.
Well, they were in Act 47, so they were taxing it at that rate.
Right.
They were able to exit Act 47 with the same taxing authority. They didn't lose taxing authority.
Right. Okay. But anyway, that's what they were able to do. They were able to tax the citizens because of your efforts to continue to tax them.
So
at the same rate.
They were able to tax them at the same rate,
I
correct.
understand you might not like how I'm phrasing it, but that's essentially what it is. Right?
I think you understand that I don't like how you're phrasing it, yes.
Be honest, Ray. Be honest. Just.
Well, I would just like to say to the rest of council, I wish we had had this discussion 2 weeks ago because I think this has really been informative. I don't think the voting session, I don't think 2 minutes before you're going to vote is the time to have this discussion. I think it should have been on a work session so that we could have taken a lot of time and
well, just so you know, I'm willing to stay here as long as you have questions to answer.
I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate the offer. I do have some other things to say, but nothing for these gentlemen.
Any other questions for the gentleman at the podium?
No, I guess, Ray, what Linda was asking was, what was the rate in Harrisburg where they capped at the 1.5% income tax rate prior to Act 47?
I believe it's. Come up here and say that. I don't.
Yeah.
So the local services tax is currently at $52 per person.
Okay.
Under the Act 47, it went up to $156 per person.
Okay.
And the EIT, I believe, went from 1.5 5% to 2.5% under
Okay.
Act 47. So
Okay,
they were able
so-
to maintain both of those enhanced
Okay,
taxing
so,
abilities.
so normally when they come out of Act 47, they go back down to 52, and they go back down to 1.5, but.
I mean, absolutely.
Right, okay.
Does it go back down? As
Yeah.
does property taxes will go up 100%. So
Right, right.
the idea that it was somehow detrimental to taxpayers, what we did, wouldn't be accurate.
Right, I understand. No, I understand. Scranton does the same thing. Scranton has that local tax. is
Increased
not
LST.
52, yeah. I understand, but I just think Linda deserved a, straightforward answer, and you've always been a straightforward guy, so don't change your ways.
Any other questions for the gentleman at the podium?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think Ms. Hauck, you have some comments?
Yeah, I do. As I said, I wish we had had this discussion before we were, going to vote on it in a few minutes. And I think a great place for this discussion to have started would have been with the manager and the Strategic Initiatives Committee, which has been pretty much inactive because we really haven't had any strategic initiatives that have been brought to us. We took a couple issues to management the last time we met, and then we had Mr. Rubinski was ill, and so we really haven't. But I think this would have been an ideal thing for us to take a look at and to enter into some discussions before we got to the point of voting. I would just say, of the 11 counties, I'm not really familiar with their financial situation. I don't know that any of them are $300 million in debt, and working through a budget every year, line by line, trying to figure out how not to raise taxes. Sure. And I just think it's a kind of a sad day in Luzerne County, a sad day maybe in America, to see that government like Luzerne County is looking at hiring a lobbyist to lobby the government. When the government has to hire a lobbyist to lobby the government, I think we're all in pretty sad shape. I understand that's how it seems to be done more and more, but I do think that we have people in Harrisburg who represent us well, and I think that having a voice there doesn't necessarily have to cost us over $60,000 a year, and it looks like it'll be closer to $66,000 a year. I also want to say that I still believe that this is a charter violation. I understand that the solicitor said that we have had incidents in the past where RFPs were not always done. But even if it was not done in 5 instances, if it was not done in 10 instances, 50 instances in the past, once you understand that you shouldn't have done it that way, you really shouldn't keep doing it the wrong way. And the charter does say that RFPs should be done. And now that we've all looked at that, we're amending the administrative code. We certainly do have to address some of those details of the procedures, but I think the fact remains that the charter says that we should be issuing RFPs for services like this. And whether we did it wrong in the past doesn't mean that we continue to do it wrong once we know that we're doing it wrong.
Anyone else?
Yeah. I didn't know who was on the committee until Mr. Ray Zaborny spoke, and like I said, I met Ray back in probably 1996, 1998, when I was campaigning for Congress. We had half of Northumberland County in our district, half of Luzerne, and part of Monroe, and part of all of Carbon, I believe. It was a good time in my life, I think, even though I didn't win. It was a good time in my life because I got to meet the congressman, and the next day after the election was over, we went back to work, and we got a lot of things accomplished, the levees, pump stations, and things done here. And I spent a couple hours with Konjorski after he left Congress, and just had a good time talking with him, and we're still good friends. But I agree with Ms. Hauck. I don't believe that we should be entertaining a lobbyist. I think our state reps have an obligation to come to us and ask us what we need, what kind of help we need. I think the money that Mr. Shiner put up, $980,000, almost $1 million that they're being paid for their performance is more than enough, and they ought to be coming to us when they're here in the area and ask us, what do you need? How can I help you? That's not done anymore. It's a sad day, in my opinion, when we got to pay somebody to knock on their door and say, Luzerne County needs help. because it tells me that they're not attentive to the issues. You know, my mother's she's 89 now and not in the best of health, but she always says to me, she says, you know, why are all these nonprofits always getting all this money from the state reps? They don't pay any taxes. And some of their executive directors get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm paying the taxes here in the city. And they're getting all this grant money, they're getting all this money from the lottery, all this money that's coming in from gaming, and it's not coming to us. And again, this is where I think the state reps, whether they're good or not, they're just not doing their job, in my opinion. So, and coming and asking us for help. So, I mean, the fact that I know Mr. Zaborni doesn't mean anything to me, and I'm still going to vote no. I'm not going to abstain. I'm going to vote no because I believe strongly that we don't need a lobbyist here. We don't need a lobbyist. We got Mr. Pedri. I mean, he's being paid over $120,000 a year now, and he should be knocking on the doors if the state reps aren't coming and going out and saying, hey, can I meet you for lunch? Can I go somewhere with you? Can we talk about this grant that we have? And you know, I need you to fight for me down in Harrisburg. You know, you're a part of this county. So that's all I have to say.
Anyone else?
Good job out there. Good job out there. But
Mr. Haas?
Yeah, for good, since I kind of anticipate how this vote's going to go down, so just being in the minority too. Mr. Manager, I think you're doing a great job for the most part. I haven't agreed on everything over this past year, but this is no reflection on you, my non-support of this, because I understand we're trying to find all the coins and the cushions, and I get that. And gentlemen, your presentation is very impressive. So again, thanks for coming, but I can't support this, and it's almost when I'm echoing what Linda and Steve are saying here. We've got a full-time legislature in Harrisburg, full-time. It was said we have somebody in the crowd said we've got 10 representatives and senators here. This 911 debacle that we have to have safety in Luzerne County. We need to support 911. So why isn't the General Assembly seeing this as a real concern and really acting about how they can come alongside us and fund these systems? Voting machines, we're going to be on the hook for $4 million through some conjured up agreement that is going to be underfunded by the General Assembly, and we don't need them. And it's just, again, inherently unfair. I feel like I'm beating a drum all the time, but I think the general public is kind of wising up to this rotating door of local funds going out the door to fund state and federal mandates. And again, we do this part-time, and I feel I've put a lot of time into this job. I read a lot of stuff. I do my own research online, and I just get the feeling we're not getting the value out of Harrisburg that we're putting in as taxpayers. And this is a plea for help for the General Assembly to help us fund the government that they dictate to us that we need to fund. And unfortunately, I don't think for a few reasons this is not the appropriate way to go, but I see the reason behind it, and I'm not going to throw stones at the justification, but I just don't think it's the right way to go.
Anyone else? I'd just like to make a couple comments. First of all, 911 is, in my eyes, are not a debacle. It's a public safety matter. And it's because of the change in technology that we have to look to make that change. And we must maintain the standard of the technology to provide our services. So I think that's something that we as a county have that obligation, and the council has that obligation, number one. Number two, I took the time myself to speak to many of our representatives, and many were in favor of people, lobbyists who work and do their work down in Harrisburg and other places. You know, they've mentioned to me, and I think it's appropriate to say, each of those people have different segments of the county. Some have more than one county, et cetera, depending on their district. They can't always focus on Luzerne County. That's not something they're able to do in their day-to-day job because of the fact that their districts are set up in that manner. This would allow us to have a single voice focus on Luzerne County. This is a way of doing business. Yes, we have never done this in the past. Obviously, the past wasn't very good to us. We have to look to the future and what we should be doing as we move forward. These people seem very reputable. I did a lot of my own research online. I believe that it's a group that we can work with. A couple issues I asked about goals and how they were set up and what the result was with Harrisburg, I think are very important to the council into the county. We must make sure we have the proper goals. We must make sure we have the proper communication so everyone knows what direction we're moving. I'm very willing at this point to offer that opportunity so that hopefully the county can move forward. We can, if we're very fortunate and we work very hard, if we are able to obtain some funds that will provide those services and alleviate some of the local pressure on taxation, whatever it might be. That being said, anyone else?
Just briefly, please.
Sure. Ms. Houck,
we
Mr.
have-
Kelleher
I'm sorry.
first, and then Ms. Houck, please.
Did you say that you had a discussion with the company about goals and how they were set up?
No, I said I asked that question here.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
That's what I said. Mr. Keller.
We have representatives from both parties, whatever the number was, 10 or 11. They work for Luzerne County, but there's 66, I think, other counties. So I think by hiring this firm, we would have people that would go out and represent our needs to those representatives who might be in the other 66 counties and help us. I think it's worth a try.
Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion on the floor to authorize the county manager to execute a contract with Mavic Strategies from Mr. Keller, second by Mr. Vogt. Roll call, please.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
No?
Ms. Howe?
No.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
No.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes. 7-3, motion carries. Thank you. Moving down to number 4, we have a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the Luzerne County zoning map to rezone parcels of property in the borough of Pringle from light industrial, which is M2, to two-family residence district, which is R2 zone. And when we had the public hearing, we did have a discussion regarding an amendment to that resolution. But first, do we have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kelleher and Ms. Houck. Does someone want to bring forward the amendment, which would say that the ordinance would be amended to say that subject to the terms and conditions of the March 15, 2019 letter from the Luzerne County Planning and Zoning Department to Charlotte Wotas, I believe is the correct pronunciation, who was one of the people who was involved with the request for rezoning.
I move that amendment.
Ms. Houck?
Second.
Second, Mr. Perry? Question on the amendment. Roll call, please.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Now we have the motion with the amendment, correct, Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Second by Ms. Houck. To adopt the ordinance. On the question? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Moving down to number 5, motion to adopt a resolution committing a local match to the state operating assistance for Luzerne County Transportation Authority.
So moved.
Mr. Vogt?
Second.
Mr. Urban? On the question. Mr. Gavlik is here. We had this discussion 2 weeks past in the work session. Any questions at this time? Roll call, please.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. Kelleher?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Ms. Wakes?
Yes.
Mr. Bilbo?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Public comment? Mr. McCabe?
Yeah, in March, I addressed council and nobody had an answer for me on the Water Street Bridge, why it was shut down for 3 days in February for an inspection. Well, you informed the engineer, Mr. Lewis, to investigate and see why it was shut down. Did he get any answers for you?
Mr. Lewis?
Well, the engineer, the road and bridge engineer.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
Okay. Do you
Operations.
have any answers from it?
That was a standard operating procedure for them to shut that down. They have to get up and inspect, it's too difficult to reroute traffic.
Okay, you get around the county. Have you heard, I did research, like the chairman said he did research. Have you heard anything, maybe the mayor of Duryea heard something too, that the reason they inspected it was the state, PennDOT, and is, Mr. Howe, I told you to,
You did.
Would you
the
talk to
committee,
the microphone?
Okay, one committee,
Talk to the
okay,
microphone so I can hear you, please.
okay, there's a committee in the county that worked with PennDOT, and
Which committee are you speaking about? The MPO?
I'm trying to, come on, give me the word.
The PennDOT MPO,
The
Mr.
MPO
McCabe?
with Scranton, with Lackawanna County?
No, it's not MPO, it's, like the flood authority. They worked with PennDOT, they want to eliminate the 2 bridges and have 1 bridge. It's not gonna happen overnight, but has anybody in this room heard anything about it? That, I think, I'm a member of Pittston and Exeter for 71 years, and I think it'd be a catastrophe if they ever eliminate one of the bridges in Luzerne County up in that area. So, I think, you know, everybody should be aware that it's on the street that the flood authority, are they part of Luzerne County or are they in the state?
The authority is a separate entity from Luzerne County?
And they don't work with Luzerne County?
Well, obviously we work with them, but
Have you heard
they are a separate entity. though.
Mr.
They-
McCabe, I'm on the MPO. One of those bridges is a county bridge. I've never heard that we're going to close a bridge.
Okay, because I'm gonna go to PennDOT on Monday and, or maybe tomorrow I might go up there and find out.
If you hear something, let me know.
Because like I said, that's what, Mr. Moss, did you hear anything around the area? Okay, because I think it'd be a catastrophe if it does happen, you know?
I haven't heard anything.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McCabe. Mr. Javer?
Yes, I would like to thank the council for coming up and hiring a lobbyist to go out and look for money and shake the trees for them. They do that's a very important job for the county today, because we have 10 or 11 representatives here. They represent part of Luzerne County, other areas. It's very difficult to find them, and they don't go out of their way to help the county from here. It's up to these gentlemen now to go out there and shake the trees and get us the money. If they don't, give them their walking papers. You know, that's all. It's that simple. You know, give them 90. No, not a year. Give them 90 days. Let them see what they're doing in 90 days.
No, they have a year
Mr. Shiner? Mr. Javer?
Yes.
Mr. Shiner has the floor.
You can take over for me.
Okay, I got it. Well, I'm not surprised if you spoke with any of the legislators in Harrisburg that they would recommend lobbyists. That's where they get their money, their gifts, all their freebies. One legislator is on record saying that he couldn't afford his mortgage if he didn't have all the freebies he gets from the lobbyists. Pennsylvania's legislators are number 2 in the country in pay, exceeded only by California. But we need to hire a lobbyist to get the government to do our work for us, because the 10 people we send there from Luzerne County just don't cut it. I guess if you give them the right gifts, they'll do it. I don't know. That's what it seems to me. The ordinance that you just approved, before you end this meeting, I hope you take a look at it and make one more amendment. I think this is rather important to the 3 property owners, or that wouldn't have been here. And it says the following properties in the borough of Luzerne: They happen to be in Pringle. So I think the ordinance needs to be modified, as long as we're talking about inconsistencies and things. Also, the fact that this whole business of a lobbyist was able to be brought to this council 2 weeks ago, and here it is, a done deal. How's the intergovernmental agreement between the county and the Flood Protection Authority? Because that's real important to the people in the floodplain. Or should we hire the lobbyist firm that you just got, and maybe we can get this done? Let's get this agreement in place. It's very important, needs to be done. It's been 2 weeks. It's actually been a long time, but 2 weeks since I've been bringing it up. 2 weeks ago, sitting in this room, a comment was made, and I was completely dumbstruck by what I heard. But I was even more horrified at the fact that not one of you said a word about it. I was sitting in my seat thinking, did I hear what I heard? It can't be. No. Because I heard it and I was, wow. And then when no one said anything, I thought, I have to think about this. Now, I appreciate Mr. Schnee saying what he did tonight. And quite honestly, I don't think Mr. Schnee's a racist. But you can't be making comments comparing the county to a black child because of money. And when it is said, you need to bring the issue to light. You can't just sit there in your seats and say nothing. Because that's how this carries on, year after year, and the discrimination continues. The racism continues. I appreciate Mr. Schnee and what he said he's going to do, but I think in the future the people of this council need to take better control over what goes on here. And to make comments saying that you thought you heard black sheep, well, I'm sorry, I was right here, and you're not pulling the wool over my eyes.
Any other public comment? One second. Any other from the public, please? Young lady? Young ladies?
Yeah, I'm just going to introduce them real quick. This is Jess and Cammie from
okay.
the
I'm sorry.
Children's Service Center. Yes. I had lunch with them a couple weeks ago, and they're going to share some of the positive stories that they deal with on a daily basis on the prevention side.
Okay, thank you. I'm Cammie Anderson. I'm a drug and alcohol prevention coordinator for Children's Service Center, and it is actually it's Robinson Counseling Center. We're the drug and alcohol portion of Children's Service Center. I'm from Duryea. My mayor's here. And we're kind of really happy that you're talking about funding and finding more money, because that's kind of what we want to talk about. We are based in schools. We do education in schools in the community on drug and alcohol. A lot of money is being, and a lot of talk is being in treatment. I want to talk a little bit about prevention and what that means and why that's so important. For myself, universal prevention, which is in a school district, K through 12, talking to every kid in that school about the dangers of drugs and alcohol. In the community, talking to parents, in preschools, just talking to businesses, talking to everyone about these dangers. I want to talk to you about why one way we know universal prevention works, or where it failed, is in the opioid crisis. The reason one of the reasons, I know there's a million, and I could stand up here all day and talk about why we have a crisis today with opioids. One of the biggest reasons is, prior to 1994, we were not flooded with opioids in our medicine cabinets. Nobody was talking to our kids about it. So over 50% of teens at the time did not believe that these were dangerous. So of course, because we weren't telling them that, because we didn't know this was coming. One way prevention worked is if you look at smoking. All of the education that we did brought the numbers down. We had less smokers. Unfortunately, now the tobacco industry introduced us to vaping, and now we have a whole nother issue. But my point is that money really, really needs to be focused on prevention. We're doing great things in schools with prevention. Universal is one of them. The other one is a little more specific. For years, we're talking about the person with the disease, substance use disorder, but it's a family disease. So we also need to put some funding into working with those kids in our schools that are going home to this every day. Jess actually does that, so she could talk a little more about that.
This is part of...
Excuse me, would you Your name,
I'm
please,
sorry,
and
my
what
name is-
position you serve in?
My name is Jessica Budzak. I am from Pittston, and I am Children's Service Center, and my title is a drug and alcohol specialist.
Thank you.
And one of the new portions of this is, like Cammie said, working with the families who have a drug and alcohol issue, substance abuse problem that they're dealing with, and it might not be the kid, but the kid has to go home to this. So one of the things that Children's Service Center and Robinson Counseling Center is working on is the school-based entity. We have now 2 school-based professionals in 2 districts, one in Wilkes-Barre area, which is myself. I am bringing up the program and starting the program in Solomon Plains. I have an office there. And the other one is actually in Pittston Area School District, and it has been working very well. The school-based program on the mental health portion in Solomon has been there for 4 years now, and it's working fantastic. And one of the things that we got to see this year is kind of bridging that gap between the families and the children. So the children that I am talking about, the children that are on my caseload, they don't have drug and alcohol issues, but their parents do. Whether their parents have gotten out of jail because of a drug and alcohol issue and are trying to stay in recovery, or whether those children are being pulled from the homes because their parents do have a drug and alcohol issue. One of the things that we would love to see, and I got an opportunity a couple weeks ago to do a resource table at Misericordia and talk to Senator Baker about this, is to get more funding, whether it's through the SCA authority, whether it's through insurances, to combine and come through. Hi. We've already got a job for you. Look at that. To kind of get the health insurances to start paying for the CSBBH, the community and the school-based behavioral health services through the school districts. Because if we don't start bridging that gap, we're going to start seeing a lot more students and a lot more kids just following the footsteps, unfortunately, of their parents or of their family members, because there's no one in there kind of taking that role and saying, hey, you don't need to follow this, you don't have to do this, here's the education and the background, which is what we do. We really need to kind of bridge that gap and start putting that funding source back into the school districts and say, here's another entity. And it is a very positive thing that we are doing here, and we are seeing a lot of success. So we wanted to bring that out because we hear a lot about treatment. It's treatment, but you know what, we are not treatment.
I'm not putting treatment down.
We are not
absolutely
putting
need it.
treatment
But we
down,
have to remember
absolutely.
We have another generation coming up, and we need
Yes.
to keep them.
We need to start working on keeping our youth drug-free, absolutely. One of the things that we absolutely love that Matt is doing, and he's trying to stay on the positive side of it, drug and alcohol is constantly negative. So we are trying to get that positiveness about to see the people who are in recovery and the children who are coming out of this in a positive light.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your work. We appreciate it very much.
Tim, I have one more as well. Sorry.
Go ahead.
We have the Dupont Crime Watch team here and President Bob Price. He's going to briefly talk about our opioid awareness forum next Tuesday.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Price, I'm the president of the DuPont Crime Watch. Each month we try to have a speaker at our meetings, some topic of importance to the area and to the community. From talking with Councilman Bogue and seeing his articles in the newspaper taking on the opioid crisis, we decided to do a forum on the opioid and drug situation in the county and in the area. It starts at the federal level, it comes down to the state level, it comes down to the county level, but guess what? It's in your neighborhoods. And in the smaller towns, everybody, oh, it's not in my town. Guess what it is? House across the street from our own was raided for drugs. I can tell you 3 or 4 others in town that it happened to. It's something that needs to be discussed. It needs to be brought out that it's not the drug guy that's living under the bridge that's homeless. It's across all spectrums. We need to have that awareness out there. So from talking with Councilman Vogue, we put together a forum. Speakers including District Attorney Salavanis, Magistrate Alex Kokura, Luzerne County Councilman Matt Vogue will be speaking, his father, Judge Vogue. I have representatives coming from the state and the federal government to discuss this with us. I'd like to invite everybody from County Council to come along also and see what we have. We actually, when it was announced last meeting by Councilman Vogue, we were going to have it at our Crime Watch at the Borough Building. From the response that we've gotten, it's actually grown beyond the limits of our borough building, so we moved it to the VFW post, 401 Main Street in Dupont. a lot larger facility. Some of the county agencies have reached out to us about being at the meeting. We're more than happy to have that. We want to see the room full. So I'd like to invite everybody from council, from the county, from the schools. It's not just a Dupont thing, it's an entire Luzerne County meeting. If anybody has any questions, it's on our Facebook page. I also have flyers tonight if anybody wants the address and the information, and our contact information is on there. And I'd like to thank Councilman Volk for taking on this topic, and hopefully we can make a change throughout the county and throughout the whole area here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. You have a motion? Yes,
I just have
sir.
one question. When the DA, Stephanie Salavanis, was here, I asked her for information about the number of drugs seized by the state police in the county and the state agencies, and she said she would get that. Did she provide any of that to the clerk's office?
I haven't seen it, Mr. Urban.
Okay, could you reach out to her and
Lawrence, have you
ask her for
heard
that?
anything?
No.
No information.
Could you ask her for that? Maybe you could make a call over there and ask her if she has that information.
You want me to give you her email?
No, I don't want to talk to her. She said she'd deliver it, and I think the clerk could just walk across the hall and ask her for it.
Okay.
Without me emailing her. That's, I think, I want to comment too. I guess I just want to thank Joe Piazza, because Joe Piazza was really instrumental in putting together the drug treatment over there on the boulevard, Wilkes-Barre Boulevard. When
The day reporting center?
Yeah, prior warden was here. He said couldn't be done, not possible in this county, even though Franklin County had one, and Joe Piazza was instrumental in getting that done. So, you know, I just want to thank Joe for that. He's a great warden in my opinion, and he did a lot for this county.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Chair.
Mr. Haas? Second? Mr. Urban?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? None heard. We'll meet. We'll recess now, and then we'll come back at 5 after 8.
Go ahead, Pete. The meeting on Tuesday, Hughestown. Yeah. The 30th, is it? 30th. What time is it?
Sharon, would you get on the poster, the flyers they have, and send it out to the council?